All right, all right. Let's get this show started. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. Beautiful day. Live well, be healthy, be great. It's your man, Howard Tyree, and I am the peoplescoach.com. But more importantly, we are the Seeds Harvest Foundation, LLC. Now, let's get started. I'm going to start a new series that's called Common Mistakes. Common Mistakes. So in this series, it's really, it's going to have several parts to it because there's several elements that I would like to touch on, speak about. So today we focus on common mistakes women make when raising boys. It can be a universal message as well inside of that when we can talk about just raising children in general. But I want to focus specifically on women raising boys. It's a common understanding that, generally speaking, women raise their daughters, but they baby their boys, right? So we just want to step into that space and explore that space a little bit and understand some things that we can do a little differently. The number one thing that's on my list, the number one focus point on my list of common mistakes that women make when raising boys, is being impatient. That's the elements of women that makes you nurturers. You're nurturers. You have that motherly, nurturing instinct. It's a beautiful thing. However, it can be counterproductive when you want to do everything for your son. I can speak on this because I was my mother's only child. My mother wanted to do everything for me. My grandmother babied my father. He was the baby. He was the youngest. And she literally babied him. Right? So I understand how my father became the person that he was because I understand some of the things that his grandmother did. She didn't allow him that space to learn how to be responsible. And so this is a common thing that I see. Being impatient, to that motherly control, that motherly instinct where you want to do everything for your son ends up translating into being impatient. Being impatient. So instead of taking the time to teach your son how to do things on his own, you want to do it for them. Right? And here's how, when we step outside of what's natural and we get all wrapped up in our emotions, it throws everything off. Here's what I mean. Our job as parents is to teach our children how to be independent. And that takes time. That takes patience. Being a teacher of anything, whether that's a school teacher or whether you teaching someone how to ride a bike or whether anything you can think of that requires you to teach somebody else, it takes patience. Because on day one of them learning how to do anything, they're not going to be as fast. They're not going to be as proficient as they are on day 1,000. All right? So it takes time. And they need that time and that space for you to back off and let them figure it out on their own. So being impatient makes the parent want to step in and do it for them. Oh, you're taking too long. Let me do it for you. Put your seatbelt on. Oh, you're taking too long to figure out how to put your seatbelt on. I'll just put your seatbelt on for you. Or get in the car. Get in your car seat. Oh, you're taking too long. I'll just lift you up and place you in the car seat, then put your seatbelt on because you take too long when you do it on your own. Being impatient So let's come back to how that becomes counterproductive and unnatural. Because if you don't take the time to allow them, to teach them, and allow them to learn on their own, that means you are taking on voluntarily the responsibility of being the one to do that every single time. Whether that's teaching a 1-year-old how to put a seatbelt on, or a 6-month-old how to put a seatbelt on, or whether that's you cleaning up your children's room, or you washing all the dishes. If you don't take the time to teach them and require them to do these things on their own, that means you're volunteering yourself to do this every time, forever. They're not learning how to do it on their own, and you taking on the additional stress of doing it every time, forever. So the imbalance happens when they're not getting what they need by understanding how to be more independent and learning how to be more independent. So they're going to be lacking now because you don't have the patience and allowing them that space to grow. And now you're going to be stressed out all the time because now you're committing to doing everything and stressing yourself out. However, if we stick to the natural order of things, if we took that time to teach them, if we were patient enough to teach them, hands off, how to do it on their own, guess what happens? They learn the tools that they need to be independent. And guess what? Us as a parent, we get a break, a much needed break. It's a win-win situation. But a lot of us create more stress on ourselves because we don't take the time to pass the torch. We don't take the time to teach them what they need, the skills that they need. Because we have to be patient. We have to give them space. We have to allow them additional time to figure it out in the beginning. Because if we don't get to day 1, then we're never going to get to day 1,000. Just like you. When you showed up to orientation, when you learned that new job, somebody had to be patient with you to teach you your new job. And that on day 1, when you got that new job, you was not as proficient as you were on day 1,000, or 3 years in, or 5 years in, or 10 years in. So I just would like to encourage you all to remember that we all had a day 1. And it's a win-win situation when we can teach them the skills that they need, because now they're becoming more independent, more confident, and then we get a break. Some of us haven't took that time to pass that torch, so we don't have a break, and now we stressed out. Instead of delegating, at this point in life, you should be able to delegate. You got older children, you should be able to delegate. Hey, you do this, you do that, you do that. I'm taking a break. If we haven't took the time to teach those skills, then we don't get a break. And they don't get the skills that they need. So it becomes a lose-lose versus a win-win. So that's being patient. And even though I know you want to do everything for your sons especially, it's not beneficial to you or your son for you to do everything for them. Teach them responsibility. Give them responsibility. Have expectations of greatness. It's easy. We can see it in society. Mothers have expectations of greatness from their daughters, and they don't have the same expectations from their sons. I would also like to encourage you to be hands off in your approach. Like when you say sit down to your son, you know, the follow through, the expectation of them actually sitting down, having consequences, having boundaries, to follow through. If we teach them in a way where they respect our words versus waiting for us to react, it becomes more effective. Here's what I mean by that. You tell your son to sit down. Now, if they're not responding to your commands or your instruction or your words, that means they don't respect you. So that's a whole different thing there. All right, if they're not listening to what you're saying, they have no respect for you. Now, it's a way for you to earn that respect and for you to get that respect back. But right now, they don't respect you. If you're saying the same thing 5, 6, 7 times in a row and your children not responding, they do not respect you. Okay? So, but if we create a space, if we create an environment where you can teach them how to respect you and they respect the words that you say, that's more productive. Especially if they're too young to be in school. Because here's what's going to happen when they get to school. If you say sit down, and the natural way of things when you say sit down is you say it 2 or 3 times, and then eventually you have to walk over and physically sit your child down, or you have to chase them around the living room to catch them and then lift them up and then sit them down where you want them to be. This becomes a game to them. This becomes mental programming to them. When mom or dad says sit down, that means it's time to take off running. They're going to chase me, then they're going to pick me up, and then they're going to sit me down. That's what sit down becomes to them. This game. I'm going to take off running, they're going to catch me, it's going to be a lot of fun, they're going to lift me up, and then they're going to sit me down. This is what essentially we are teaching our children when we are hands-on, when we have to physically sit them down after we gave them verbal instruction, right? The only challenge with that is, once they get to school, these school teachers are not going to physically put their hands on your child. So now what's going to happen? They show up to school. You've taught them that sit down means take off running. You're going to chase me, lift me up, carry me to my seat, and then sit me down. You've taught them that for 4 to 5 years before they showed up to school. That's what they learned. So now they get to school, and the teacher says, sit down. They're going to do what they've been doing for the last 5 years, 4 years. They're going to get up, they're going to take off running, and they expect the teacher to chase them, lift them up, take them to their seat, and physically sit them down, because that's what sit down means. That's what you have taught them in the last 4 or 5 years. Only difference is the teacher's not going to do that, because the teacher's not going to put their hands on your child. Now, all a teacher can do is write up some paperwork saying your child has difficulty following directions. Your child has difficulty being still. Your child cannot remain seated in their seat. Your child is a distraction to the class. So now we got this paper trail. All because you taught your child that sit down means take off running, you chase them, and you have to physically sit them down. That's what they've been doing 4 years before they showed up to school. School teacher's not going to do that. They're going to make a paper trail. Now, there's going to be an evaluation. They're going to see that your child cannot sit down and be still. And they're still not going to put their hands on your child. All right, now we got a new label. We got paperwork, we got a paper trail, now we got a label on your child. Now your child's going to have to go from a regular classroom to a classroom to have people sitting in the class to help the teacher when these students get up, when your child get up and they say sit down and your child take off running like they do at home. Now they got 1 or 2 people in the classroom it's their job to physically sit your child down. We know what the labels are. We know what comes with that. What I'm saying is, if we, starting at home, can teach our children how to follow our verbal instructions and have the patience, have the boundaries, and have the structure to enforce our verbal instructions, that way they don't show up to school and get these labels put on them that in some cases they don't even deserve. Because in some cases, they're doing exactly what was taught to them by their parents for 4 years before they showed up to school. All right? Now, so the last thing, and I'm gonna make this kind of quick because I'm already approaching 15 minutes, so this is a little long. So the last thing, that's on this list of 4 things, is being too tough on your sons. Some women think that in order to make your son tough, you have to be hard on him. Like, you weigh 120 pounds, your son weigh 40 pounds, you punching him as hard as you can. My son not gonna be no punk, so you're not gonna be no punk, so now you're punching your son, right? Only difference is you think this makes him tough because you don't understand manhood, right? You don't understand when to stop. So you keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And some of these boys end up growing up as broken men because if you too physical with them, you can break that warrior spirit inside of them. Because a man knows that it's a certain limit that you go to because you want to see a level of pushback in your son. You want to push him and see how he responds, see if he will fend for himself. You still want him to be that warrior that can stand up for himself. And some women don't understand that, so they'll keep on pushing until they break the spirit, the warrior spirit of that little boy. Now, as a means of survival, he does something different. Because as a means of survival in psychology, we can identify with our abusers. What does that mean? When you have a mother that say, I hate your father, you look just like your father. They're punching on their son because they look like their father. So now, as a means of survival, they can make a conscious decision to look more like their mother. Hey, I'm not like my father anymore. I'm more like you, so you don't have to hurt me anymore. So I'm not my father. I'm like you now. So there's a limit. So there's a way and there's a point where you can be too tough on your sons and break their warrior spirit. And these are all challenges that come when you have an imbalance in that yin and the yang, when we're not working together, because we need each other. It's things that I understand about boys being raised into men that a woman would never understand. It's things that women understand about girls growing into women that I would never understand. It takes both of us working together to create this healthy space for our children, is what I'm saying. All right? This is just a little taste. Just getting started. I'm going to do a series. We got work to do. All right? Yeah, we got work to do. And we in it together. All right? Live well, be healthy, be great. It's your man, Howard Tyree, and I am thepeoplescoach.com. But more importantly, we are the Seeds Harvest Foundation, LLC. We got work to do. We got work to do. We're far more stronger when we're able to work together. All we need is us. Peace.